and I'm with the SBA Columbus District Office. Many of you hopefully have joined us for some of the webinars we've had last week and this week, all in preparation for the virtual Ohio Business Matchmaker, which will be a week from today. It's hard to believe, but we're headed towards the finish line. Today, we're being joined by James Yagodich from the Ohio Department of Administrative Services. He's going to go over how to do business with the state. Very important information on to anyone who wants to do business with the state of Ohio. But before we get started with his presentation, we are actually going to hear from Karen at the PTAC in Cleveland. We're very happy to have her administering the webinar today and talking about PTAC services, because once you have gone through James's presentation and perhaps some of the presentations from the other federal agencies that you're hearing from, you might have more questions than answers. So PTACs are definitely a good place to get started. And Karen, just real quick, a logistic thing, as we're going through the presentation, if any of you have questions, if you could please send them through the chat function. I will be monitoring that and asking James questions that you present in there. I'll try and find a timely entry for that question. Okay, Karen, can you talk a little bit about PTAC?
Sure, Jill, thank you. Yeah, PTAC is a statewide organization, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and we are here to help any business who's interested in going after government contracting as a way to expand their market base, and that's at all levels of government, federal, state, and local. We help you with registration, certifications. We help you find opportunities to bid on through our free daily bid matching service. We help you understand government legalese, contract clauses. We help you even once you get the contract with invoicing and any other issues. We offer assistance with SBIR grants, a whole laundry list of things. I will put in the chat window the Ohio PTAC website, and there is a PTAC office near you. You can go to that website and find the closest one to you if you're not around the Cleveland area. And next, I am going to be turning things over to our esteemed speaker from the state of Ohio, Mr. James Yagodich.
Whoa, thanks for the awesome intro there, Karen. Yeah, my name is, to start off, I'm James Yagodich. I'm with the Ohio Department of Administrative Services within the General Services Division. Our office is the Office of Procurement Services, where we create and manage and maintain state contracts for a whole list of things, whether it's IT related to fishing poles. So we cover the whole gamut, and we're going to be talking about how to do business with the state today. I'm part of the training and outreach effort that we provide to suppliers and internal agencies to make sure they're well aware of procurement laws, processes, and understanding how to do business and how to do business on behalf of the state as well. So coming from both sides today. So I'll try to mention as much as I can. Feel free to ask questions, chime in whenever necessary through the chat. I'll try to make sure we address those within those topics if possible. If not, we can circle back around. I don't want to take too much of your time today. There's some information that's good that go out there and do yourself. So we'll talk about that, and I'll actually jump out there to the web and kind of walk through a few things. And then once we're all done, we'll get the slide deck to you guys to kind of give you some of those step-by-step processes to kind of start looking into getting the right resources and getting yourself set up with the SBA groups out there across the state. All right, I'll get started here. We serve more than 40 program areas within the Ohio government customer base here at DAS. Like I said, we focus on contracts. We focus on making sure suppliers, when they get contracts for the state, are doing the best they can to provide the best service. So from cradle to grave, we manage the state contract process. We do IT, non-IT, all types of goods and services. Get into a few of those things here, but today, again, how to do business with the state. I think that's an important step that most times monitor's getting a little funky here. I apologize. So how to do business with the state? The question gets asked a lot of times. How do I do business with the state? A lot of suppliers believe that there's only a select few people who can. They get discouraged and give up on that. But our job is to reach out, to provide as much guidance, as much information to you to help you navigate through the process to be more successful at understanding how it works and finding your niche within the state's opportunities. Today's agenda, like we're going to talk about what does the state buy, just so you understand that. You're going to understand purchasing requirements for the state agencies. Each state has a certain list of things they have to do by law. We're going to talk about how the state does buy at that point, navigating the opportunities that are out there, where to look, how to look. Also talk about registering for the OHID. It's a new term that's being tossed around. It's a good thing to get registered, have that in your back pocket and start building on your profile for the state. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about responding to an ITB, an RFP, just some basic reminders that are best practices for you to when you get into those steps of trying to make an opportunity, a contract for yourself and your company, a reality, making sure you can step through A, B, C, D, dot the I's, cross the T's. All right, over $6 billion a year is spent by the state of Ohio. Whether it's rent, services, supplies, the state spends and allocates that much money to maintain its day-to-day operations. So within that, there are $1.8 billion worth of spend that is done with supplies and services that the state has to contractually put out there. So those are the numbers, and I know the number looks rather large, and in today's world, 6 billion doesn't sound like a lot, but in reality, it's a lot of money. And you think about if you're running your own business, whether you're buying pen, paper, Post-it notes, cars, fuel, building, all those things are part of what the state still buys as well. We buy computers, we buy vehicles, we buy clothing, we buy pharmaceuticals, professional services, food, anything, again, that you need to operate a business, operate an institution, 24/7 care, moving material around the state, connecting to the World Wide Web, getting pharmaceuticals for the Department of Health, getting clothing for institutional purposes, professional services, all those things are under the roof of what we buy. It's not limited to that, but that's just caps off the top of a lot of big items that we're looking at. But then down to the granular, whether we buy fishing poles for one-time opportunities for Department of Natural Resources, whether we buy, fish for hatcheries for DNR, just to name a couple of things. Those are the limited opportunities that are out there. And then on the other side of it, we do IT professional services where we look for software, whether it's Adobe product, whether it's Microsoft Word or those types of things. So the state buys a lot of everything. But how does the state make purchases? That's often the question we get from suppliers. How does the state buy things? Because I try to get a contract, I'm not seeing it, I'm not being able to participate. Just as a, yes.
What percentage does the state spend on services? Do you have that broken down?
I do not have that readily available. Trying to think what the number, it varies year to year. I know there's a number, but I don't have that on top of my head. I do apologize.
Okay, that was one of the questions in the chat.
I can circle back around, and what I'll do is any question I may not get 100% on, I do apologize up front, but I can parking lot those and circle back around with some more details for those questions.
Okay, thank you.
So state agencies, like I said before, are required by law, the Ohio Revised Code 125.035, to purchase from one of the following state resources first, if the product or service is available. we have to purchase through the Ohio Penal Industries, Community Rehabilitation Program, opportunities for Ohioans with disability, IT, state printing and mail services, mental health, facilities commission on construction. Those are the things we have to go to first. Those are the areas where these institutions, these agencies provide goods and services to state agencies. We have to go to them per law. So maybe if you're looking, your business sells something specific that Ohio Penal Industries provides, such as office furniture. We have to go to the Ohio Penal Industries first for requirements. There are exceptions to that. There are processes, but it's rather steep in paperwork to get around that process. So I think sometimes we hear that can't get business, and I think maybe understanding like these are why we can't start off in these areas. But there are opportunities within these groups as well to do business with them. We'll cover those here throughout the slideshow.
And we got another question. What percentage of the state spend goes to minority businesses?
Overall, minority businesses, the state looks to spend 15% of each agency's yearly spend. For instance, DAS met the requirements for the MBE spend 15%. In years past, it's been about the same. We try to make sure there's contracts and we make sure there's opportunities. Each agency is required by the governor to meet that mark. So it depends on what their spend is. Our agency is a larger agency. We have a lot more funds coming in. So our numbers are larger than, let's say, the board and the commission of cosmetology, or agencies that are smaller like that. So yeah, it just fluctuates on what the actual numbers are, but it's a 15% overall of contractual spend.
All right, thank you.
So if we can't find a requisite program, the next step we have to go to is the existing Department of Administrative Services contracts. And those contracts have been established on products, supplies, and services already. We have to go to them because we've already done the competitive process to get the best pricing. And we've had solicitations out there for these types of things, whether it's a certain type of commodity, service, or product. And also, but a thing to remember, some of these contracts are mandatory and some are optional use. So it depends upon what the product is. Again, there are strict processes of procurement law that we have to kind of go down this process, this checklist, to make sure that we're buying from these right buckets of things before we can get into the open area. So if we cannot find a requisite program to provide our goods or service, we've gone to the existing state contract listing. Nothing fulfills that need as well. The next option would be for us to establish a new contract. And how we do that is a competitive selection process. One of three ways would be an invitation to bid, where we call that a one-time bid. A lowest responsive and responsible bidder wins the bid. And what that means is basically we're looking for a one-time quantity purchase of an widget X, and whoever is the best price, that's usually the award that gets awarded to them. Now, our request for proposal is kind of on the other end of the spectrum, where an RFP, as we talk about it in our office talk, those are proposals where we're looking for a solution. And a solution we need, Department of Natural Resources is looking for someone to come in and build a bridge, a walkway over a nature preserve. And we need to understand what the best value is to the state. So there could be lots of different suggestions and lots of different proposals. And it doesn't always mean the lowest price, because it also has to be the most responsible decision for the state. So keep in mind, when there is a request for proposal, it's the best value for the state. It's not always driven by dollar, and it could be based upon the solution that's being provided. A lot of times we see that in the IT world, where we're looking for a software solution that handles finance processes. There may not be a one fits all type of approach in a software system, we have to build something, and maybe we have to get different parts and pieces from different things to get the best value for the state, and those proposals cover that. In comparison to a one-time bid, it's one item, one specific set of specs, and it's a one-time purchase type of thing. Now we do look at reverse auctions, where the lowest responsive and responsible bidder is the winner on that process, but the state has not done too often because the commodity it's a specific area of inquiry to be able to do a reverse auction. Probably like 10 years ago, we did a lot of food reverse auctions. Contractually, as the state's gone through some changes, we've not done as much, but we're looking to look at opportunities to bring that up back to the state to put into an opportunity to compete competitively.
James, we got a more in-depth question here.
Okay.
Is priority spend for medical supplies and equipment through OPI? If not, how does an MBE get on contract for these supplies? So far, I've only been able to see awards for wound care products and PPE and no solicitations.
For the medical contracts, it depends if it's an open contract or if it's an MBE set aside, for instance, where there's a specific contract for MBE. It just all depends on what the contract is for. Now, solicitations may not happen every month, every 6 months, or maybe once a year for some items. We do have some contracts that range a 2 to 3 year of a contractual timeline. So perhaps that's where that falls. But I'm trying to think if OPI has medical, but if there are.
Yeah, it looks like they're seeing awards for wound care products, but no solicitations. So you're saying that might be a 3-year contract anyway?
It might be a contract. I mean, without knowing, I'd have to look at exactly what the solicitation is for, who it's from, and if it's an open market or if it's a set aside. There are set aside contracts that help us get to that 15%. That are specific MBE contracts. But to be able to speak to that, I'd have to look into it a little bit more in depth.
Karen, could you put your email address in the chat and we can work on getting an answer for that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, thank you.
And I guess I would preface, a lot of times, like with questions like that, if you're looking for solicitations, you're seeing awarding of solicitations. We'll get into a few slides and kind of dip into those areas of kind of like how that works and where to go. And we'll also talk about, like I mentioned, MBE, set-asides, open market contracts, and those types of things to help see the bigger picture of that, hopefully. And again, any questions like that, I'll take an email, a phone number, and follow back up with anyone to get some further discussion on that. And when we look into new contracts, they're negotiated. There's a couple different choices. We have state term schedules. I think that is a cool GSA in the federal world. I know a lot of people think the state term schedules at the state are ideal, and that's what everyone wants to have and everybody needs to have to really make money. But that used to be the case back in years and years ago, and we've recently pushed to the new legislations come through. State term schedules have to have a minimum of 3 quotes for every purchase. So if you're going to buy off an STS, say everyone on the call has an STS, I could reach out to at least 3 of you, and the 3 of you who you've given us your best price previously, I'm going to reach back out to you and say, what's your best price today? Because once I'm required to reach out to 3 to get the best price. Now for your widget, you may say I'm at 50 cents or 51 or 49. And if it's all the same widgets, obviously the state for spending taxpayer money. We want to make sure we get the best purchase at the most affordable cost. So we're going to reach back out to you. We're going to say, hey, what is that 48, 49 cents is your best deal today? No, actually it's 46 cents, and we're going to be able to take that negotiated opportunity and use that for purchasing and for pricing for that time. But again, law has been put in place for us for any purchase that requires comes from a state term schedule, has to be a minimum of 3 quotes, ensuring the best price. We also have master maintenance agreements, MMAs, and those are for type of they're warranties that may be expired on items like say elevator maintenance and stuff like that, where we look for an overall maintenance agreement to make sure that there's properly maintenance quarterly or yearly or whatever the item may be, to make sure that's in there. Those are negotiated contracts as well. But these prices, again, are negotiated and based upon the federal schedule pricing, similarly situated, the most favorable customer pricing, and with other competitively bid contracts from state or local consortiums. And the local consortiums could be where, for instance, the city of Dayton, the city of Steubenville, and Columbus get together and come up with a contract for street cleaning services. From just using an example, and we can make sure the pricing isn't above that, using those types of pricing to make sure we're getting the best deal. And again, our goal is to make sure for DAS is to manage our contracts and make sure we're spending taxpayer dollars effectively and efficiently to make sure that the opportunities out there can best the state. Now, that's how we have to purchase. Those are some of the rules and some of the bylaws, and those are the day-to-day things that each state employee, when they go to purchase pens, paper, equipment, tables, cars, they have to follow those rules, be able to purchase. Whether now, once you get into that process, understand that the next part is like, okay, now here's how do I use the state procurement website? The state procurement website is a one-stop shop opportunity to start off to understand where opportunities are at, how to find necessary links to resources, whether it's help guides, maybe it's an FAQ on a topic or a process, names and numbers of people to reach out to. So a lot of things it provides are those. Some of the top ones are supplier and Ohio buys bidder registration. That's one of the top things on our list of last year into this year and coming year of 2021 is registering and getting people properly registered with the state to do business, getting them in Ohio buys. Ohio buys is a new financial tool for us to be able to do solicitations, requests for information, contracts, managed contracts, purchase through the state, to have better spend analysis, to have more transparency, even including our local cooperatives, whether it's, I can mention the city of Dayton, city of Cleveland, everyone could be using the local townships, the fire departments, the schools can use state contracts within a certain percentage and effectively use those. And that increases your audience of opportunity as well. The more people we can have looking to get contracts, the more people we get registered, the more opportunities there are for both sides of the equation. So here we can see this is the landing page of the procurement, state of Ohio procurement page. You may or may have not seen this. This page has a lot of information. At the top, you can see where for suppliers, and that's going to be where everyone on the phone calls will be looking at. That's going to be your main drop down. But also this page is transparent. We're not just putting one thing for one person. It is state agencies, political subdivisions, for just the public in general who wants to know something or look for something. And we've all of our help and reference, we have our contacts. And we also have on those quick links, a lot of different specialized links to take you to areas where they may be concerned, whether, like we mentioned, MBE and EDGE opportunities. There's state printing and mail service opportunities. And I will preface this as well, not every solicitation is on this site, for instance. Majority of them are, but this is DAS established contracts. Now, other agencies such as BWC, the Bureau of Workers' Comp, the Department of Health, Department of Transportation, especially, they have their own site. They put all their own solicitations up there. We have within ours the state printing and mail services. If your business is printing, you could go there for specific print opportunities. But we're going to get into that in more detail here in just a minute. But this is an important page to make sure that you're familiar with. You have bookmarked on your laptop, your desktop, your phone, just to make sure that you have a quick access to information to ensure a starting point of looking for something. So underneath that supplier dropdown, we're looking at registration. And then that first link off to the right is register to do business with the state. You always, if you've not done registration with the state, there's other ways to do this, but this page, at least from the procurement side, starts you, and everything's in a big web or connected together. So once you click on that, we're going to land on the supplier portal, State of Ohio supplier portal, which provides you two options. You can log in if you already currently have your supplier identification credentials and your OHID, or you can create a new OHID. The OHID is a unique identifier that each supplier, each state employee, each person out there wants to do business with the state has to be read to have. It's a number that you will use in multiple areas. And I will say, as we get into the future, it'll kind of be your one-stop shop identifier, getting in to do supplier registration, invoices, purchase orders, and things. Once you get a contract and you get those things established, you can use this portal, this identifier to get access to those pages. So once you do that, you're gonna click that and create a new account. And again, it's just the identity management alert, just saying, as we continue moving forward, this is for you. This isn't for your business. Just a clarifier, each person in your business, whether it's the owner, whether it's the person who's responsible for getting solicitations and trying to put quotes in for bids and stuff like that, it'll be important that each person has their own OHID to manage, so they can, and what we'll talk about is association as well. Owner of a company, Dale's Widgets, can come in, register himself with an OHID. Once he gets registered, he'll register his company to his OHID. And then as his employees that he deems necessary to do processes within this life cycle, you'll be able to add those people to your existing profile and structure within the business to give them the right credentials to do the work that you need to get done. And this will come into play with a lot of Ohio Buys activities. So again, just as anytime you created an account online, you're going to put your name, your middle name, some of those optionals, work number. Now I want to make sure it's using the right email address, making sure you don't want to use a common email address, like saying your company. If you have a specific email address, I know we've run into some issues where some people, when they establish their OHID, some of their email addresses are different than the ones they use. Just making sure you're consistent with that email address as you move into using your profile and your OHID, moving into Ohio Buys and getting bidding registration opportunities and so forth. So what you'll do is you'll go through a process in the middle of this registration, and we'll talk about category codes. Category codes are the universal numbering system for specific goods and services. Whether you have janitorial service products that you provide, whether it's unique items of professional services, IT, furniture, you have to associate certain codes to your profile. And the reason why you have to associate codes is so the state can associate with those solicitations. So what will happen is that if you are, in this example we're going to look at is janitorial, your company provides, but maybe it's the actual services of janitorial. Maybe you provide the products that they use to clean, or maybe the carts, etc. Those types of things. You need to have those on your solicitation, your profile, pardon me. So when we do a solicitation, we'll pull back all of the suppliers that have these types of codes. So you'll get notified of these potential solicitations, kind of the medical question in tow. If there are specific categories that need to be associated with your profile, that way you'll be able to get notification of upcoming solicitations, whether, and now we'll show a hierarchy, and I'll get into that. Where it starts at is the United Nations Standard Products and Services Code, which the UNSPSC, and don't try to say that too fast because I always forget the extra C's on the end. But this is where you can actually go and look and specify that code, because some people call them commodity codes, UNSPSCs. They're just category codes to make sure when we're doing solicitations that you are in the right bucket of people who have that commodity, so we can solicit to you to give quotes and get back bids on those. So going to the website, as you can see here, searching for codes. It's pretty simple, just using the search box on the left side of the page, whether you actually know a number. Some people may be accustomed to using the codes and different at the government level, but the state level, we use the UNSPSC. You can even put a name. You can just janitorial. You can put office furniture. You can be vague. You can be all along the gamut of the description of the items. And this one, I put janitorial. And just to give an example of those number of codes, as you can see, we have within the title of janitorial, you've got cleaning and janitorial carts, accessories, equipment, supplies, services, accessories, and or cart. And if on the left, you can see there's different numbers for those. There's some start with a 47, some start with a 76. And it's important to make sure that you're putting those numbers in your profile if you offer these types of services, because if we're just looking for janitorial equipment, or if we're being specific, we're just looking for carts, cleaning and janitorial carts, and we do a solicitation on 47121501, and that is in your profile, you'd be notified that we have a solicitation for that. But also you can roll these up with these 8-digit codes. You could just go to 47 and the rest zeros to make sure you catch all solicitations with that. And as you get into this website, it's good to get out and get familiar, make sure you're populating your profile. And as businesses grow and shrink to demand of what their products are being provided for, these may change, and it's always good to stay on top of those updates, whether it's adding more, taking them away so you don't get unwanted solicitations of things you don't, offer anymore. But this is an important part of your profile. Get it into that, making sure you know what you provide, so that way when we do solicitations that you're getting those automatic notifications within that. Now, if you're currently a supplier, maybe a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, this year's felt like it's been 2 years at least, you forgot, you have a profile issue, you're having an overall problem with your account, you can reach out to our peers at the supplier at obm.ohio.gov for assistance. And what they can do is they can look more deep into the supplier portal, because we share that responsibility. DAS, we focus on this side of the house of the contractual process with procurements. Our friends at OBM, the Office of Budget and Management, they oversee the supplier process to make sure that you're up to date with all your I-9s, all your necessary tax forms, all the necessary billing information to make sure everything's properly addressed within your portal profile. So before step back here real quick. Oops, am I going back too far? Yep, sorry. We'll just jump into it here. Finding bid and contract opportunities. Once you've been registered, once you have your OHID, once you've populated your profile with your business, you've added your key category codes. Now, okay, you're ready for those automatic solicitations. But as I mentioned earlier, sometimes solicitations for a specific good or service doesn't always happen weekly, monthly, even maybe yearly, just because of the way the length of the contract is written. How do you go out there and look? How do you go find the next opportunity for your business? Well, going back to the State of Ohio procurement page, like we left a minute ago, within the supplier dropdown, you can also see opportunities. And what we're going to be looking at all opportunities. What I'm going to do is kind of walk through the slideshow, and then I'm going to jump out to the actual website, just to kind of give you guys a little feel for that, because I think sometimes just looking at it from a live perspective versus a slideshow just gives a little bit more to that. So you've got that. You need to look at bid opportunities, and you can, as you can see, there's IT opportunities, there's printing, construction, Department of Transportation. These are different ones within the group of all opportunities. Now, not all DOT are out there. So one size doesn't fit all, unfortunately. We're trying to get to a place where our new system holds all of the solicitations in one spot. So that way, when you come to the state, you come to look for business with us, you go to one point and it's all there. Kind of reminds me of the old thought of the grocery stores, whether it's Meijer to Walmart, those large household goods to food, you name it, they have everything under one roof. So we're working our way towards that as a state to provide a better experience for you as suppliers, so you don't have to navigate through multiple websites to find all the information and then find out you didn't find it all. So what'll happen, we're going to look into the procurement search, and like I mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities out there to look for. You may not know what you're looking for. You can take the chance to look at, if you know a bid number, if you know the keywords you're looking for, an index number. Sometimes this is terminology that you're not exposed to because of the state's inside language. Some of the conversations can be based upon commodity, opportunity types, whether they're open, whether they're MBE specific, etc. So a lot of times we tell people for that process, you always want to just leave the search wide open, because that brings back everything. You're not limited. You're not skewing your results on anything other than all. And as you can see, what will happen is it'll pull back all results. And let me just jump out here real quick. Where'd it go? Can you guys see my screen?
I think so.
Does it say Ohio buys on it?
It did, but now it's blank. It's like we've got a gray line down the center of the screen. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Yep, we've got it.
All right. Again, State of Ohio procurement page, what it offers you is a long list of information. What we just mentioned, bid opportunities, there's Ohio buys opportunities, there's IT. We're just going to click on the all opportunities, and just for demonstrative purposes, like I said, you can go in here and you can be exact. You can do market type, whether it's MBE or, again, the best thing is to just leave it all blank and hit search. What this is going to do is it's going to bring it back, and then you can pull it into a spreadsheet. You can sort it however you want to, or you can sort basically from the landing page. But what you can start to see, what you'll see is the title, and they're all alphabetical. We'll talk about opportunity type and how it's an RFQ, like request for qualifications, and Earlier I mentioned the RFP, where this is the best, value for the state. Come up with an asthma evaluation program versus down here at the bottom, a trail project by DNR, and it just they're looking for something one time, that's it type of opportunity. But at the top, you can see all the ones that are active. It'll display those. And then underneath issued by, these are the agencies that are the ones in charge of this. The DAS may be partnering with developing it, or this agency themselves has the ability to create contracts and they're just posting it on our webpage. And in this case, as you can see, not issued by Procurement Services, as a clause to let you know that this is the existing agency that's managing this process. So, and here to the question earlier, you could look at market type, what ones are coming out, whether it's an MBE, open. Most of them are going to be open. And then looking at the index number. If you know those, sometimes it helps for additional reference, referring back to. And also then there's the document bid number, and then the posted date and when that opens, the actual date. Now there's dates and times where you have to actually have all your bids, all your documents printed, filled out in by a certain time and date to make sure that they meet that criteria of being able to be open. And once it goes, we'll talk about this at the end of the presentation, some best practices, because if it's a 1 o'clock opening date, if you arrive with your package of information at 1:01, you will be denied to be able to turn in your bid for that opportunity, because that's just how the state has rules are in place to make sure there's control to that. So I guess we can scroll down here. Let's find we'll just look at this DAS one. So you can, anywhere there's a hyperlink, the blue underline, you can click on, and what that'll do is that'll open up. And this can be seen by anybody, whether you are on a state employee, whether you're a supplier across anywhere you have web access, this can be viewed. So some of the things in here you can see, this solicitation has embedded minority set-aside component within that process. So there's certain rules of that process on how that has to be completed. What you can do, obviously it tells you that the commodity area that you're looking for, and it goes back to UNSPSC. There's a specific commodity code for that. We're looking for a proposal, and you can see the requesting agency is my agency, the Department of Administrative Services. You can see the date. It was posted 10/30/2020, and then there's an inquiry period. Now this inquiry period for any potential opportunity will be different based upon what's been requested for it. But this is where anyone can ask questions. And what you'll find out, a lot of people try to call a number and ask a question about this opportunity. Like, I'm going to get the inside track on this. But unfortunately, we can't do that for transparency purposes, because then we could be giving someone the advantage to say, oh yeah, I talked to James and he said I should do this, and then he didn't tell Sally this, so then Sally's like, well, you gave him an unfair advantage. So what we've done is there is an inquiry where you can get questions and answers to your questions. And what that is, during a certain period of time, you can submit a question. What will happen is that everyone who submits a question I'm just going to click on it. Yeah, there we go. And what it is, like when you ask a question, everyone gets to see the answer. There is no specific one-sided question. These questions are reviewed by a panel of procurement analysts. They run through those, even with legal, to make sure that they're responding in a way that gives clear direction to the question, and also it gets ambiguous to one side or the other. It just gives the clear answer. So during a period of time, this is how questions are done. Once the contract is in place, and say you're awarded a contract, there will be an actual analyst name associated with your contract you can actually call and talk to about a contract. but up until the point that you win and you're awarded, the communication has to be done through the Q&A process. You always want to check in the associated PDF files, because within the PDF, this is the actual request for proposal document. This includes all the necessary parts and pieces. As you can see, this RFP consists of 5 parts, 10 attachments, 59 consecutively numbered pages. So there's a lot of information for this process. It is important that you read through, validate, and understand all the parts and pieces of this RFP before submitting. Again, we're going to talk about some of those little best practices at the end of today, but you can look at any additional expectations, criterias, calendars. It's all in here for you to be able to reference, to be able to see, to get all the parts without just reading the top layer of, this was the improving equity and career technical education. So that this document spells all of that out and all the parts and pieces are necessary. And for every opportunity out there that exists, that's an opportunity for, like we talked about, let's just do an MBE just to quickly show that. So as you can see, oh, well, that's not right. There we go. So again, it tells you if it wasn't issued by our department, what the title is for, specifics of the description, areas of computer software supplies, the inquiry period as well. It tells you that this one specifically is an MBE set aside. It's not an open market, it's only MBE certified. MBEs can actually participate in this. There's important steps that we'll talk about, how to make sure you have the right steps, the right documents, the checklist completed to be able to be certified to be MBE or EDGE, depending upon your status within that area. We'll get back to this page, but we'll get back to the presentation. All right. Oop. Sorry. All right. We're back on this screen, right? Yeah. All right. So what we're looking at, again, just a slideshow, just some still images of opportunities, what we just went through live. It's important to look at the searches because you don't always have information at your fingertips to like know when things are coming up. And this is a great way to look out there and see what opportunities are coming. You can also see when they're going to be there. You can plan for getting your staff ready to gather, prepare in time to make sure you meet the deadlines to have an opportunity to have a chance in winning that solicitation. Once you've identified where the solicitation's at, you're not seeing an opportunity, the next best thing is marketing your business. Often we have a lot of suppliers that are unaware of this process, and marketing yourself is I think is just what the SBA, I know they work with that, helping you market yourself, looking at that, but there's some opportunities we can provide to kind of point you in the right direction. Within each political subdivision, each state has a list of contacts at certain entities that you can reach out to, market your goods or services. Within these political subdivisions, they're not required to use state contracts like state agencies are, They may not know of your services. They may not know of the goods and the supplies you can provide them. So looking out there to what we can do is you're looking at that, and I got this all right away. Underneath the cooperative purchasing linked out on the DAS site, and there are all these sites. I'll make sure you have all these links at the end of the.
James, we have a question about leadership development services. Do you have suggestions and marketing strategies or how to find out if there's opportunities in leadership development?
Yeah, I'll get to a slide here in a minute, kind of like gives a good idea of how to go about that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Down within the cooperative purchasing group, we have, you can look for co-op members, and how this can be used, kind of the map on the screen. And what it is, if you look at every map, let's just say we'll pick a smaller one. We'll pick Guernsey. What that does, that gives you Cambridge Area Regional Airport. Even though they're kind of in the state of Ohio, not everyone's underneath the procurement practices and expectations of our agency. So, you know, there's people you can reach out to, the city of Cambridge, the public library there, township offices. Now, these offices may be small, and they may have some opportunities for other people they just don't know about. When I go out and meet with these individuals in these communities and these townships and smaller, and even in the city groupings, I try to make sure that I'm sharing that information, because we're wanting to make sure everyone's aware of what opportunities we can have for everybody. Because sometimes there may not be a solicitation for at the state level, but there may be solicitation opportunities at the county or the city level that can be opportunities for everyone as well. So this is a great opportunity within the political subdivision group to reach out to, and you know, like I said, look at that marketing, look what you're trying to provide, and say you're of a widget that fits into a a widget for a library. There are multiple public libraries across the state. Within each county, you could reach out. In this case, Luke Bentley, reach out to them. They're identified on this website as a point of contact, you know, for marketing purposes, see if there's any solicitations or any goods or services they may need or that you may be able to provide with your widget. So it takes a little extra, you know, research, but I truly believe, talking with some suppliers, that once they found this out, they were really kind of excited about the opportunity, not having just to wait around for a year or, you know, whatever time period that would be to wait for a solicitation at this level. There's a lot of opportunity out there. The state itself, I mean, the $6 billion that we're spending on all these types of things, and every county, every local entity, township, political subdivision is doing the same. They're spending money on things they need to purchase to stay up to date on daily operations. So
We just got another specific service question.
Mhm.
So this one is for payroll and bookkeeping and accounting. And isn't it true that when firms set up their profile with a state, they choose the the United Nations codes, where that should help them be able to find the specific categories they're looking for, like the specific type of work, correct?
Correct,
you
yeah.
covered that briefly at the beginning, but we're getting more specific from the participants. Okay, I do this. How do I find that opportunity based on what I do? So
yeah.
Um,
And that comes down to like looking for looking in the opportunity on the procureohio.gov website, you know, looking for those, narrowing down your searches, making sure your profile within your supplier, in your OHID in your company, that you have the right UNSPSC codes associated, so that if there is a solicitation that comes up that you're not aware of, that you're not looking for, that you get the email, you get the notification. But also on this, like we're talking about right here, the political subdivision side, you have an opportunity to say, and while I'm waiting for a solicitation, I could be out marketing that widget to, there's 88 counties in the state of Ohio. And you think of all the, and now if I clicked on just, I think Franklin County within this, there's a longer list of, there's 5 pages of multiple contacts from multiple areas and multiple school districts and multiple fire departments and stuff like that. So there's lots of areas, whether it's payroll, bookkeeping, leadership
There's a lot of accounts payable people on here.
Say again?
Accounting specialists, accounts payable, so finance specialist. That's a really neat feature there.
Yep. Yeah, so there's lots of opportunities to look, and again, it's really not a known thing. I think when you look at governmental contracts, there's places to go for look for that. If you want to sell to the city of Columbus, there's places to go for that. If you want to sell to the state as a whole, there's places. But if you have specific widgets that don't fit into those current solicitations, and say it's a Department of Transportation widget, a tool for building something, you have to go to that location. But we are currently in the process of working on the Ohio Buy system, which will lead us to a more inclusive group of solicitations for a large number of agencies. And even the cooperative purchasing groups that we're mentioning here in this map are able to be participating in that as well. So, the goal, making sure you get registered with an OHID, making sure your supplier profile is properly connected to the UNSPSCs out there, making sure that you're looking for opportunities, looking for those additional chances and within the 88 counties of marketing opportunities. Sorry, those are there. We're back on the right screen, Jill.
You are on the Equal Opportunity Division screen is what I can see.
Perfect.
Okay.
Gotcha. I saw 3 screens and make sure I got talking there and got distracted. So
Sure.
another opportunity is looking at if you're an MBE or an EDGE or a veteran-owned business, and now there's I think it came out in the news last week that there's a women-based enterprise equal opportunity division certification that's going to be out there. There's an account projected based upon expenditures. Each agency, like I mentioned earlier, has to have a certain number of contracts and a certain number of spend on things they're going to be purchasing geared towards MBE. This is last year's. They have an update. The newer one's a spreadsheet. It's not a fancy cover, but I just used the cover to. But it's a list. It lists every single agency. It lists the type of account codes that we're looking at, the listing of, say, IT, professional services, and maybe we're looking at bookkeeping, payroll within a certain percentage. They're going to be identified on those, and they look at that, and they project that every June. I believe it's June 5th of every year. It has to be together and put out there for public transparency to make sure we have these opportunities are going to be coming. We're going to have these contracts in place based upon these types of things we're looking to spend. So it helps you project where you need to look for within those opportunities as your business. One other thing that comes up, and each agency has their ability to purchase directly with a supplier, but that cannot exceed 25,000. They must get approval up over 25 to 50, and there's certain rules within the legislative process for us to procure that, to make sure we can't spend more than $50,000 with the supplier per fiscal year per supplier, unless there's a contract for that. So there's opportunity up into that $25,000 for each agency to spend as they within the means of with the Ohio Revised Code. So what that turns into is giving you opportunity to say, okay, this is that widget thing. You know, we're talking about the cooperative purchasing. Looked at the map, we have 88 counties. Okay, now at this level, there aren't any solicitations that are coming. Maybe I have a certain widget that I think that would be great for this agency. I know the Department of Health is looking at PPE. I know that's a big thing right now. We have lots of solicitations that have gone out this year for PPE. But it's a Department of Natural Resources. Say there's a widget that you know would be great for them. You can go to the agency contacts on the State of Ohio Procurement website, and you can go there, and underneath that drop down, you can open that and look at the agency procurement officers. And that is a list of every agency procurement officer for every agency in the state agencies. You can contact them directly. We have lots of push to make sure, like, if there are certain widgets that you can actually market to those boards and commissions and agencies directly, to inquire upon that. You know, there might be a widget again that they could use that meets within the DPA that allows them to spend without having to contract and those things. So another opportunity for marketing is reaching right out to the actual agency and inquiring within. Now, I would say that between the county, between the agency opportunities, the EOD, projected spend, those are lots of areas to start looking at if you haven't been looking at, to start filtering through and seeing what's out there. To really give yourself the chance to look at potential solicitations, look to see what's coming, or even maybe like, okay, I reached out to them, I think this widget's great. Maybe they would agree and say, yeah, this is a great widget. And you know, there's other things in place that can lead to other opportunities that, but again, you have to start that process. The state is not out looking for suppliers to give them business. We're having the outreach. It's like, I can get out there and say, hey, these are all the avenues where you can look to help us bring in more bidders bidding on things to help drive competition, to help drive us towards a better source product.
Now, do you have any recommendations for them when they're reaching out to those agency procurement folks? Should they have a capability statement? Maybe having done research on that state agency before approaching them so they have an idea of what they buy and how they buy? Because certainly the more information they're able to give the agency buyer about themselves, the more likely they'll be to get a response back, is my thought.
I would agree. I think you got to be prepared. I'll give an example. I know there's a gentleman, my boss is within procurement, and a gentleman had, they were talking, they had been on the conversation on the phone a few times, and listening to the conversation, yes, you know, I would say when you're contacting the state, have as much ready as possible. Be prepared. Because I don't think you're going to find, they're not going to be asking you the questions. You're going to need to be asking the questions and try to drive that conversation to, again, it's a selling point. I know it's always a little uncomfortable trying to sell that, but obviously having a conversation about a product, having a service that you can provide. And maybe it's not all 124 agencies. Maybe it's 3 that really fit the need of your widget that you could see. And what you could do too, I'll show you guys to look at past contract, or look at the current contracts. That might give you another idea of like what types of widgets I can look to actually provide. So, but these are great steps to look at marketing. These are the ways to give yourself an advantage to not just wait, because waiting, you don't know when they're going to show up. I don't even know. We may project them, but based upon economy, based upon other factors, they may not come to fruition this year, maybe next year. So
that just gives you an opportunity to plan.
Yeah, exactly. And working with the SBA group, I know that's awesome. And the PTAC group as well, that gives you the opportunity to say, I need to work with someone to help me get my ducks in a row so I can have that conversation confidently. I can reach out to the people and, and understand how the solicitation process works, and then filling out that solicitation, because maybe it's, I just need to cross a couple more T's, and then that would have helped more in the process. So, but let me jump out there. I'm going to show you guys real quick. I think that is helpful within. So, current contract search. Again, same process with the filtering. You can look under specific keywords, commodities, and this one that has multiple commodities that break it down for you. But I always tell people, just hit search and then filter from there. It's easier to filter down than to try to add things back. But what you can do, and for that case, to Jill's point, is, what are states buying? You can look to see what agency is purchasing, what contracts, where things are coming from, what types of materials. You can look at when the contract may be expired. For instance, say your company does building and construction support, management, maintenance, repair. You could look at this and say, oh yeah, we do plumbing. We're able to do that. But this current contract is going to expire in 2022. But in the meantime, it can prepare you the time to do some research to find the right widget, the right agency, the right cooperative purchasing, political subdivision that you can market to and sell to. So this is also a good friend to use within the searching process, because you don't want to limit yourself just to waiting. You can do some more research. You can find out what people are purchasing, what's being sold, what specifically it is, where it came from. You can look at pricing. Let's look at this one, for instance. This is all public information. There we go. So here, same information we're looking at. Some of the fields are, you can see that we actually have a supplier. There's an actual number, effective date. It runs till 6/30/2022. You can look at the contract terms and conditions to help you understand what made that bid more successful than your bid. You can do that research for yourself to kind of have that personal leverage and know that maybe it's hourly rate that you missed on for that bid, perhaps, and you can kind of see that.
And just so everyone understands, when that has that expiration date on there of June 30th, that means that this won't be up for like a rebid or recompete until then?
That's a good question. Usually right now, I think they're looking 9 to 6 months before it expires, doing a review of the process. Is the contract needed? If it is, there's a few things that go into that place. Does it need to be rebid? Is it a different type of contract? So like right now it's a master maintenance agreement. Does it fit underneath a certain category, or is it a one-time bid? Or they'll evaluate that. And yes, that's a good point, because it could be, this could end at 6/30/22, and then there could be a new contract while this is ending that, for example, Willis and Sons Plumbing would have to rebid on. They wouldn't automatically get the bid because they're just the current holder of it. They have to rebid for that.
Now, could the business potentially then, if they had those questions that you were saying, could they email Terry there, the Terry
Veropoulos.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if there's questions, you can. I mean, that's we like to send people to the bid desk because it's kind of like, maybe it's a general question. Terry has lots of contracts. But again, and it's not stopping anyone from emailing him a question, asking, getting some details that they have. He'll let you know whether he can answer those. Again, for transparency purposes, there are certain questions he may or may not be able to answer over the phone or through email, because it's just.
So like general questions, there's a big desk where they could ask those questions
Yep.
first. So you recommend that first and then
Yeah, and what
the individual analysts?
Yeah, and what they'll do is the bid desk can handle those questions. They can kind of triage that. They can say, oh, I can give you direction. I can answer most of your questions at this point, but and there may not be something. They'll be able to help divert the question. Maybe then Terry doesn't have to take that email and they can have a phone call. There's a couple of different options with that. So, but yeah, at the end of the slide deck, the bid desk number is on there.
And that's for all bids that show up on the website?
That is our central point of communication for if anyone has a question on a phone and an email. It goes through a mailbox, and we have someone answering the phone to handle questions and stuff like that.
Would it be easier for them if they were to email it to the lead by like contract number, like question regarding contract MMA 7617, for example?
Yeah, I think giving as much detail as what you're looking into. Vague questions saying I'm having a question about a contract. I'll be honest that there's a lot of contracts and that question may not be understood because if it's an MMA versus an STS versus a MAC contract, there's lots of different contracts, and based upon that, when the expiration date is, how that was awarded, et cetera. So providing as much information in your inquiry would be helpful.
All right, thank you.
So yeah, again, looking at the current contract detail, there's lots of things that you can do as a supplier to get more information to better prepare for the next bid. It may not be right away, but as you can see, 6/20, it doesn't seem that far away, but time does fly. It seems like we'll be in 2021 in a couple months, and that'll be here in no time. So there's lots of additional resources for you to go and look. We'll jump in here into the MBE Edge opportunities. There is contracting, provider list lookup. Let's just go. Underneath the equal opportunity division, and if again the links are provided in the slide deck, everyone will get. Going through here, there's lots of things you can look into yourself, whether it's a checklist, if you want to apply for certification for EDGE or MBE, or if you are a local women's-based enterprise looking for certification, whether you're looking to get recertified, you can see the number of dollars that are spent with minority-owned businesses over the past 10 years, 10 years plus actually. You can look into publications. There's additional documentation, certificates. We can scroll down here at the bottom. You can also see as we hyperlinks that take you to more places. And within this specific page, there's actually video tutorials that help guide you through requesting access to a certain type of business account. Ohio Business Gateway, not an OHID, different, but similar. There's just different areas of based upon your certification and what you're looking to do. But underneath publications, you can look under to do more research and reporting. If you're looking at that, say you saw that the agency DOH is having projected spend in this area that fits your widget, you can get that verification from the projection plan. Help guide you toward that better research, better preparedness for those questions, reaching out to their group here. Underneath our group, we're at Surface Road on the west side of Columbus. We do have Equal Opportunity Division. We have the Office of Procurement Services. We have a Fleet Management. We have lots of different divisions within our group. that I'll purchase. So definitely use as much as you can resources that are posted, that are available with links to go out and do your own research. Now, if you have questions, again, looking out to those contacts, and whether it's email, whether it's a phone, there are opportunities to do additional researches. Let's see. All right. Make sure I covered all that. I want to show that I think that's helpful, because as you get into that using your quick links, there's lots of things to look at. Maybe it's just taking some time and walking through some of the links, getting familiar with that.
Karen, James just disappeared. There you are.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Clicked the wrong button on. Excuse me. But yeah, using as much of the resources that are available at your fingertips can really prepare you for asking questions to your PTAC, other groups that are helping you to get started, maybe even with other suppliers that are out there. They may be telling you one thing and then it may not be 100% true. So definitely use your resources to find as much information to support your research and your solicitation inquiries.
We got a question. Is the state WBE certification fully available now?
Good question. I know it came out last week and they announced it. The details, I think, are still, I don't know the actual details. I know it's in place. I know it's been for about a year and a half. It's been kind of worked on, talked about, kind of trying to get established. The overall details of that, I can't speak to, but I know underneath, and I guess maybe what information are they looking for? Because underneath equal opportunity,
Cindy,
do have-
you want to expand on that question? Probably can they get certified? Well, I see there's a certification checklist there for WBE certification.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's an expedited certification.
Yeah, it looks like there's to be eligibility.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of information there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would go here to EOD and look through here and review those steps and resources to help.
Are there set asides for WBE? I think that still falls under Edge, doesn't it? I don't want to confuse it. I'm going to stop talking right now.
No, at this time, I do not believe that there are set asides yet. I don't know if they will be when. I just know, right? Like I said, we've been trying to get this into place for women-owned business enterprises. I don't know what the next step is. It's there. I'm not sure if it'll be some of the part of the preference programs that are compared to EOD, Edge, MBE. I don't know if it falls underneath that, but it's exciting news that this is out there. I just know they're trying to get all the right things in place to provide those opportunities if they're going to exist that way.
My understanding is Edge still has the certain of percentage of business that has to go to Edge certified. WBE is still working on that portion of it. So there is the certification. Okay, Karen, PTAC Karen just said, no, there's no WBE set asides right now for Ohio, but that's probably as of today.
Correct.
Yeah. Knows about tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the next, let's say the next year, there may be legislation that changes that'll be part of like the MBE process where like even Edge has certain number of required purchases against it. I think it's 5.
Okay, she also said changes to the Ohio revised code must be made first.
Yeah. So all those are in transition, moving towards that now. again, if maybe if by this time next year, we may have some set aside opportunities for that, but I'm not sure. Because I know that we don't have set aside for right now, but that's all, those are just under the preference programs. And there are some benefits to those for contract purpose, for bidding and solicitations that are noted. So I just hope that as the solicitation, sorry, the legislation changes, and they'll start to, we'll start to see more of that. And that'll be updated in the presentation once that is kind of ideal, because I know that's a good way to looking of preference programs in addition to overall solicitations just for open markets. But
yeah, the last thing, there is a 5% preference for edge.
Yep. So every agency has to do that. I recommend, they're encouraged to make sure they meet those numbers for that process, or they have to report to the governor, and nobody wants to talk to the governor about that.
No.
Yeah, so, but a good way to look at that again is use the website. Lots of information, lots of links, lots of knowledgeable people on the other end of the email. One of the ladies that works in our group works within the EOD program. She's been there 10, 12 years, very knowledgeable, very customer focused. So we've got a lot of good people on that process. If you have questions, reach out. They're more than willing to help guide through that process. And yeah, just as a reminder, we currently right now we're in the process of looking. I'm just click on it and let you all see what it looks like. Right now we have a state procurement vendor handbook. A few years back we replaced the word vendor with supplier, and it is out there. It's an existing document. It's not completely wrong. It just needs to be updated. I'm part of a team that's looking at revamping this process. So suppliers like yourself can easily go pull this handbook, look at all the necessary links, look at all the necessary steps, and make sure that what we talk about today reflects this handbook to guide you through a process, be successful. Getting registered, getting the right UNSPSCs, knowing where to look, knowing where to market, knowing who to reach out to, whether it's PTAC, SBA, our agency, to get the right questions. Again, this is being revised. We're in the process of this. I'm hoping, I think our goal is this winter to have an updated, completely revamped version out there. But these are the common steps, and like some of the things we talked about, like who buys. Some things I'm actually talking about are in here. Some of the preference programs, types of awards and contracts, and compliance processes. So this is a good resource as well. There aren't any bad resources. There's just a lot of them. We're just trying to consolidate those, because I know that people in our training classroom want a simple takeaway. They don't need to be inundated by a lot of different links, a lot of different documents. And we're doing our due diligence right now to provide that, to get to that point. So I believe we've got PTAC members on our group as well, hearing and listening to you guys from their point of view, what's going to be necessary to this handbook, listening to supplier contract development processes. So this is going to be a really cool book to lean to in the future, to be that one source that'll be able to provide you a one-stop shop of information that gets you started. And then you can pass along to others in that group of new suppliers. Okay, I could go on. There's lots of stuff here, but we'll switch back to this presentation and kind of wrap that up. So if we have any more questions or we need to go over anything else, we have plenty of time. So once you've found your solicitation, once you've identified, you've marketed to the right people, your time to shine. Okay, now the bid's out. I've gone on the procurement website. I've seen this opportunity. It exists. What do I do now? And we're going to go through a few slides. There's a few slides of duplications because there's two different processes, but they're similar. But responding to an invitation to bid, a couple key things. You'll see an actual document you'll have to support. It's important that you read all of the necessary parts and pieces. It's also necessary that you fill in every box, check every checkbox appropriately. Because what we find out a large percentage of the time, a certain group of suppliers, bidders that come into this solicitation process don't complete this completely. And there's no way we can have you go back and redo that. You won't make the group that gets reviewed for the awarding the actual contract. So it's imperative that we go through, click, review, download. Some basic best practices is just to print a copy of it. Look at it. We're signing things. We always tell everyone to sign in blue ink, not black ink. We talk about Buy America, Buy Ohio certification preferences. This will be reflective of the WBE as well. If you're a certified veteran owned or MBE set aside, you have to have a certification number. You have to add all the necessary documents. That sometimes is the complication part of, like we saw a little bit ago, that 59-page document had all types of requests, criteria, expectations, all that had to be completed, filled out, so that way that the bid can actually be reviewed and determine whether it can be awarded. An additional process is just making sure everything's signed and making sure when you deliver that, or whether if you drop it off in person, whether you have it shipped by FedEx or UPS, they have to be signed, sealed, delivered before the opening date to be able to be considered to be in the review process. If you show up and you're driving across town, say you're driving across town from Columbus to the west side, you're on the east side, you're driving, or say you're even in Mahoney County, you're driving from that point to the west side of Columbus. If you run into a rainstorm, an accident, and you get to our location here at 4200 Surface Road at 101, there's nothing we can do. We always remind people to build in that timed insurance, whether that's however you want to get it there, it has to be there by the time, because if not, we cannot accept that bid for that solicitation. Our bid openings are Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Unless there's a holiday, then that gets shifted to the next one. We do have all our bids certified by the attending state auditor group. They come and validate that everything's filled out. They validate all the parts and pieces that are required to be, excuse me, are there. It's not just one-sided. We have an additional authority to verify that for us. So once that evaluation process begins, it gets taken to that specific analyst. No one can communicate with them. They do their awarding, reviewing process under lock and key. And within this process, the invitation to bid is awarded by the lowest responsible bidder. And in this case, though, we had a one-time bid for 10,000 fishing poles, and whoever could provide the cheapest cost for the specs that we provided will be awarded the contract. Now, for requests for proposals, like I mentioned earlier as well, that's a little bit different, and I'll talk about that next. So just a quick run through that. And now requests for proposals are a little different. So when you see that RFP out there, there's a little more detail that needs to be done with that. There's a little more effort that there's more specs, there's more criteria that's required to provide, to submit for the solicitation. Again, it's the best value. A lot of times we're looking for software. What is the best solution for software for a financial, maybe like we talked about, even the payroll bookkeeping. The state needs a new payroll bookkeeping system. What is it? and what can we do? And you may be able to bring back multiple different system solutions, and we'll look at the best value for the state, what are of the cost, the actual tool itself, and how it fits with what we need, rather than just the lowest bid. So keep that in mind in those RFPs. It's always the best value, because we always want a good price, but we also need to make sure that the solution works for our intended audience. There's a few extra parts with an RFP. Again, this is where it's imperative to make sure you're reviewing everything. I apologize.
All right.
We've got executive summary, talks about calendar events. There's certain things that have to be submitted on time, certain dates. There may be demonstrations, there may be on-site visits. There are lots of additional things that help give the right value, the right view of what we're looking for. And there's lots of attachments. Fortunately, within the RFP, there are lots of additional steps, lots of additional documents to read and sign off and verify and provide. So it's very important to, once you find that solicitation, once you find that opportunity, you want to make sure you're going through and checking off crossing those T's, dotting those I's, reaching out to the PTAC group, reaching out, trying to get as much assistance as possible. Again, there's a certain number of steps we can provide information for, but it comes down to, we can't give any additional conversation and too many details. We can only talk to making sure, like step one, that you provide your scope of work. We can't tell you what that scope of work should contain, but we can tell you that it has to have a scope of work, because that's part of the attachment. So definitely work with all the resources you have to make sure that you're progressing through this and getting all these forms together, because if something's missing, it can't be included in the review process to be able to be in contention to be awarded. Again, it's important to mark. A lot of our RFPs have large number of documents, large volumes, and we may request 5 copies of each thing. So we may have one copy is 400 pages. We need 5 400-page volumes, and that sometimes I've seen 15 boxes for some software implementations that we're looking for, or maybe it's just an envelope. It just all depends on that. So reading and reviewing it and making sure you understand all the steps going through that process, and marking those necessary documents, because if you don't mark them properly, we don't know which ones to open, which ones not to open, which ones they're associated for. So these proposals are opened as well. They are certified as well by a state auditor to make sure that everything is reviewed and verified. So once all that's done, then it goes through a review process. The state looks at, it may be a short period of time, it may be a longer period of time on the actual proposal, value the state's looking for. It may require additional steps that may be part of the terms and conditions of that. So again, very important to, once you find it, what that you can provide, making sure you give yourself the best opportunity by filling all the necessary documents out and fields, and getting in by the required time to give yourself the chance to be on the review process to potentially get awarded that contract item. All right, now just in closing, overall, additional resources. There are lots of different links here. I want to add a couple more, just the things we covered, just to make sure, like, you can go out here. These are already on the State of Ohio Procurement website. There's nothing new. It's just something you can go to, a quick link through there to get to those. But I do recommend the State of Ohio Procurement website as a browser favorite. Put up there in your bookmark. That way you can get to it, be comfortable with it, look through it, know where your widget fits in the big picture, try to do some research, and that should give you a better opportunity to be prepared for that next solicitation. And then again, if any questions following today's session, I will reply on some of the conversation, some of the questions, some of the parking lot ones back out to the group. But if you have questions, you can call the bid desk, reach out to it through email, being specific to what your inquiry may be. They'll be able to let you know if they can't respond to it, if it's an active inquiry. They'll point you to the Q&A session where you'll have to type it in and then someone will respond to the whole audience. That way, everyone has a chance to see what your question was and what the answer was to that as well. But that's all I have today, just kind of big picture wise. I'm gonna send, like I said, I'm gonna add a couple more links there. I think a real big thing right now is our Ohio buys. As you become registered for the state and become a supplier and get that, your OHID, and get all those things in place and get your profile built, you'll start to get more emails in Ohio buys and start to see the opportunities that are going to be coming with that. Not necessarily having a contract, but just being on the list to be able to look at your commodity codes and be requested for a quote on widget 2 that you have. And then, that gives you an opportunity potentially for, doing business with the state. So, do we, I guess, any outstanding questions, Jill?
I'm looking in the chat now, and I know that it was a lot of information today. I really appreciate it. That was a great breakdown of the website, a great breakdown of how to prepare, of how to consider doing business with the state. And then I also, that extra feature with all of the cities and counties and that's a great feature as well. So I feel like I learned quite a bit today. Oh, you're getting some kudos. Yeah, saying the presentation was exceptional. So really appreciate it. And are you going to be are you going to be at the Matchmaker next week or someone else from the DAS?
I get to do this part. Usually I get to do the web stuff or but I only go as an attendee at the Matchmaker. We have a different group of people. I just don't, I'm not at the booth, the physical booth usually, but this year, since we're doing virtual, I might be there.
Okay, well, wonderful. I don't see any specific questions coming through, just thank you. So
All right, well, thanks
appreciate your
everyone.
time today. All right, everybody. Well, I think that's a wrap. So Karen, you can stop recording.